Hi, welcome today to our webinar, Serving the State of Tennessee, by Randy Boyd. Randy was appointed president of the University of Tennessee by the UT Board of Trustees on March 27th of this year, following a 16-month period as interim president. As UT's 26th president, Boyd serves as the chief executive officer of a statewide university system. The flagship campus in Knoxville includes the Space Institute in Tullahoma and the Statewide Institute of Agriculture. The UT system also includes campuses in Chattanooga and Martin, the Health Science Center in Memphis, and the Institute of Public Service. Boyd served as chairman of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission and as commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development. He was a founder and co-founder of the Governor's Rural Task Force, which exists to help state government and industry leaders find solutions to the biggest challenges facing rural Tennessee. Boyd also served as Governor Haslam's special advisor for higher education. He was the architect for Tennessee Promise and the Drive to 55, and was the founder and chairman of Tennessee Achieves, all initiatives aimed at increasing the number of Tennesseans with post-secondary degrees to 55% by the year 2025, and decreasing the financial hardship for Tennesseans pursuing degrees. Boyd and his wife Jenny live in Knoxville. They have 2 children and 1 grandchild. Randy will speak on serving the state of Tennessee, something he knows well and has demonstrated throughout his life. I am honored to introduce my friend, the president of the University of Tennessee System, Randy Boyd.
Well, JC, thank you for that great introduction, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this webinar today and get an opportunity to brag about the University of Tennessee, my alma mater, and all the great work they're doing all across the state before the crisis, during the crisis, and what we plan to do after the crisis. It's been a defining moment for us and will continue to be so. So as I titled the first slide, Serving the State of Tennessee, I want to talk a little bit about what the University of Tennessee does to help support the state of Tennessee. We are the land-grant university of the University of Tennessee, and our job is to make sure that we provide a ladder up to the working class and the middle class. That was the mission of all land-grant universities. Our goal is to make sure that everybody across the state of Tennessee has access to higher education, has access to a better job, and has access to a better life. We also focus on discovery, doing research that will help us to be able to provide new discoveries that will help make life better for people, not just in Tennessee, but around the world. And lastly, as the land-grant university, we're also here to engage with the people of Tennessee to serve immediate needs. We want to be able to solve the grand challenges for the state of Tennessee. For example, last year we started a project that we called SOAR, which was an initiative to help address the opioid crisis across our state. We have a critical crisis with the opioids. We've had it before. We'll have it after this COVID-19 epidemic, and it's something that the University of Tennessee, with all of its resources, have the ability to address. And so when we say we're here to serve the state of Tennessee, we mean not just to provide the talent for the future workforce, but also by being able to provide new discoveries and by being able to solve the grand challenges. And to do those things, we'll flip to our next slide. To do those things, we think when we are successful, that we will be able to look back on the 2020 period as the greatest decade in the history of the University of Tennessee. That's a big goal. There's been some really great decades before. In my State of the University speech about 3 months ago, I listed 8 different decades as possibilities that one might choose from as the greatest decade. But I'm going to, for brevity today, just say I think the greatest decade was the 1960s under Andy Holt. The university added UT Martin and UT Chattanooga. We admitted our first African American students. We went from 11,000 students to 37,000 students. We created the Institute of Public Service and the Institute of Agriculture. It was an incredible decade for our university. But I think we have the possibility of being able to equal or even exceed that decade. And by saying making this the greatest decade, we don't mean to any disrespect to those that have come before us. I think the people that have come before us expect us to do better and to build on their foundation, so we owe it to them to do that. So here's a few things that we're focusing on that we think will help us earn that right to say this is the greatest decade. First, we've had unprecedented increases in enrollment and fundraising. We want to continue to build on that. Again, Andy Holt in that period tripled enrollment. For us to do something similar, we're going to have to have outreach to new students all across the world. We're going to have to increase our international student enrollment. We're going to have to provide more online opportunities to be able to expand who we can offer our education to. And then we'll be probably looking at new offerings as well, not just the same bachelor's, master's, and doctorates, but micro-credentials that provide smaller consumable bites of knowledge for people that are working today. And so we had to look at how we deliver what we do. We want to be more accessible. Our universities are accessible now, but we want to make them even more so. We were really proud last year to announce something that we're calling the UT Promise. The UT Promise is a new initiative where if you have a family income of under $50,000 and can earn the right academically to come to any one of our campuses, UT Martin, Knoxville, or Chattanooga, then you'll be able to come free of tuition and fees. We're the first university system in the country to ever be able to do this, and we believe that it's critical to our land-grant mission of providing that access. And we want to make it more than just a financial aid program. It's also a complete wraparound support program. We're going to make sure that each of these students has mentors all on the way, a mentor to get them into college, then a mentor for the first 2 years to make sure that they enter successfully and engage in campus life, and then third, they'll have a mentor for their last 2 years to help them matriculate back into the workplace and get jobs. And so I believe when it's all said and done, the mentoring part of the program will probably be what we're most known for. To do all this, we're creating a One UT culture, a program, a different attitude across the state. We've got, as I mentioned, the Health Science Center we have in Memphis, which produces 70% of the dentists and doctors for the state. We have this great regional campus in rural West Tennessee called UT Martin. We have UT Chattanooga, a regional urban setting university that's doing tremendous work. Then, of course, the flagship university in Knoxville. We also have the Oak Ridge National Laboratories, which we manage, 5,000 of the top scientists and engineers around the world that the University of Tennessee is responsible for managing. By having all these our assets, we have the ability to do great things, but only if we work together. So another big thing that we're trying to accomplish in this next decade is to create a One UT culture where we all work coordinated and aligned and work together. One of the biggest opportunities for us, and mentioning Oak Ridge National Labs, is to expand the research capabilities and the partnerships that we have with Oak Ridge National Labs. To date, we've done well. We've been managing the lab for over 20, or just now 20 years. We have 5 joint institutes. We have 120 Bredesen Center Fellows, students that can work at the lab and study at UT simultaneously, and so they can do really great work. We have 16 governor's chairs, some of the best minds in the world on certain specific areas that they focus on. All these things are great, but they don't work together. So we decided to create something called the Oak Ridge Institute, a new organization that will put an umbrella around all those disparate pieces so they can work in better coordination and alignment. In addition, we plan on hiring an additional 120 faculty members and another 400 graduate students to do key research on things like quantum communications and on bioinformatics. So by doing these things, we can also solve some of the most critical needs for the country, at the same time providing great educational experiences for our students and build the University of Tennessee into one of the premier research institutions in the country. We've recently combined the UT Institute of Agriculture back with the University of Tennessee Knoxville's administration and organization. We were the only land-grant university that had the Institute of Ag separate from its main campus. By combining them, not only does it catapult us in our research rankings, but it allows us to be more aligned and be able to serve our students and the agriculture community better. One of the first initiatives that we did once we did that unification was to create something called the UT Commission on Agriculture. Our team at the Institute of Ag did a great job of communicating and staying in touch with people across the agriculture community, but separate from the president, separate from the chancellor of UT Knoxville, and from the chancellor of UT Martin. With UT Commission on Ag, we're bringing all of that leadership together so that all of us are making sure that agriculture is a top priority all across the system. We believe in being transparent, and we created something called Transparent UT. On the first week on the job a year and a half ago, we created this Transparent UT, making sure that everything that's available to be known is known and readily accessible on our website. Rather than having people having to wait to do a FOIA request, if it's something that we are legally allowed to share, we'll share it immediately. We want to be as transparent as possible. We've got a great story to tell, and the more information we can share, the better. Trying to be more efficient. We're working on ways to make sure that the system and the campuses can minimize the amount of time and cost that we spend on operational and administrative functions so that we can have more money to invest in our students and our faculty. And then finally, the SOAR, as you see, is something I mentioned already. It's an initiative to focus on how to solve some of the grand challenges of our state. In this particular one, how to reduce the opioid crisis in the state of Tennessee. Meanwhile, as we're moving toward making this the greatest decade, we had a little crisis that you may have heard of called COVID-19 that has been a big challenge for all of our campuses over the last couple of months and across the whole nation and the world. We set this goal of being the greatest decade in the history of the University of Tennessee, and about a couple of weeks ago someone asked me, well, now I guess that's out the window, isn't it, because of this COVID-19 crisis? And I said exactly the opposite. I think every great decade needs a great challenge, and it's how you overcome that challenge that defines you. And we're going to make our ability to overcome this challenge a defining moment in the history of the University of Tennessee. So a little background. March 11th, which was, I remember, a Wednesday, was the day that we decided that we were going to suspend classes for 2 weeks after spring break. Now that may not seem like a big deal today, but at that moment nobody else had done so, and it was the first time that the University of Tennessee had suspended on-campus classes, I should say, for a 2-week period. We all did it together. All of the campuses collaborated and discussed and made the decision that this is something that we would all do together. And since then, we've been making other decisions together. We, on the following Monday, decided that based on all the information that we had, we weren't going to be able to bring our students back for the entire spring. And we were also going to delay the commencement ceremonies. So students would still graduate on time, but we would delay the actual ceremony until sometime later in the year when we felt like it was safer. Those were all very big decisions that we had to make. Then finally, we made the decision to suspend the summer classes as well. The information that we had showed that the only way we would be able to do those were also online. So we continued to do our classes, but we didn't do them on the campus. In every case, there was a few key rules that we had, and I'd share this. I've been asked this question many times over the last month. What things do you do differently when leading in a crisis? And I don't think there's anything that's different. These are all things that you would do on a normal day, but they're more critical during a crisis. The first is work together and focus on teamwork. We are better when we work together, when we can share ideas. Back to the one UT culture, in every decision, every step of the way, all the chancellors and myself are in constant communication, bouncing ideas off of each other. Those things have been very helpful. Second, communicate. Even in good times, you always want to communicate. I always had this saying when I was in business. Someone would ask, or I would say that the answer to the problem is a lack of communication. Now tell me the problem. In every case, usually the root cause of most problems was a lack of communication. So in this case, we want to make sure that we're communicating, making sure that our faculty, our staff, our students, the public, the legislators, all knew as much as possible as soon as possible. The third thing was making sure that we were transparent. You can communicate but not say a lot. We want to make sure that we were giving everybody all the facts all the time. And sometimes we wouldn't know the answers, and that's okay too. We felt it was important to say we don't know, and we're still working to find out, but making sure that we were as transparent as we could possibly be. And the final thing is to be decisive. When there was a decision to make, we wanted to make the decision immediately, not wait until we procrastinate. So as soon as we had all the facts, we wanted to make all the decision right then. Let's see if I can move on to the next. So moving forward, one of the big questions today is what do we do next? So as of about a week and a half ago, we announced that we were going to have all of our students back on campus in the fall. Even though we didn't have all the details worked out, we had a good idea of what the certain things that we needed to do, but we were determined to be able to provide an on-campus experience for our students. We created a task force across each campus and then across all the campuses with a system-wide task force headed by Dr. John McCullers, the state's leading epidemiologist. And with this task force, we came up with, on the statewide task force, some guidelines, some best practices for all of our campuses to follow. We've had those verified and supported by the Department of Health at the state level, and compared notes with CDC and every other organization to make sure we're thinking about every possible aspect that we possibly can to make sure our students, faculty, and staff can come back to the university and be safe and healthy and protected. We also want to make sure that we provide the students a great experience. We've been telling all of our students and all of our communications that it will be a new normal. This isn't going to be the same as you've had before, but maybe in some ways we think it can actually be better. More hybrid learning, more opportunities to take certain lectures from their dorm room. I think there will be some ways in which we can actually make it more interactive and more efficient, and still a great experience for our students. So we also last week announced these system-wide guidelines, and then a few days later the University of Tennessee Knoxville released their very specific campus level program. All of our other campuses are in the process of releasing their guidelines for their specific campus. While we try to do as much as we possibly can together, certain things were very different from each of the campuses. So to have separate programs was important in this case. We also, during this process, have stepped up to find ways in which we could serve the state. It's not just about making sure we're serving our faculty, our staff, and our students, but continue to serve the people of the state of Tennessee. There's been so many examples, it's hard to count them all, but the start, the state of Tennessee's Tennessee Higher Education Commission reached out to us to use our 3D printers, of which we have a lot all across the state, to prevent face shields for our health providers, which we did. We made over 3,000 face shields within a matter of weeks. The state of Tennessee called us again and asked, could you help us distribute face masks across the state? You have extension offices in every county. Our health departments don't have the ability to distribute them all. Can you step up and help us there? And we did. And then the governor called and asked, would you be willing to supply the medical personnel to lead the staffing of surge hospitals across the state? We stepped up and did that as well. The Health Science Center's got a team of epidemiologists working on new treatments for the COVID-19 crisis or virus. We've also got our own testing tent in Memphis, where medical students that weren't able to go to campuses to do their clinicals are now volunteering, almost 100 students per day, 24/7, working at drive-through testing facilities in Memphis. I could continue on, but all across the University of Tennessee, faculty, students, and staff have stepped up to make a difference to keep our state safe. We also want to make sure that when we come back, that we're being fiscally responsible for our families and their students. We know this is a difficult time for everybody. It's a difficult time financially for the University of Tennessee, but it's even more challenging for our students. And so one of the things we committed to and announced also a few weeks ago is that we're going to have a 0% tuition increase this coming year. And that's not just one campus, but all campuses. And it's never happened before in the history of the University of Tennessee that all campuses at the same time are announcing a 0% tuition increase. So in summary, I just want to say that these are challenging times, but as this quote says, or is something I shared with my board just about 2 weeks ago. These challenges will not defeat us. They will define us. This will be the greatest decade in the history of the University of Tennessee. Not in spite of our challenges, but because of how we overcame them. We will be transformed in how we educate, how we discover, how we serve, and how we work. We will be better and stronger as a UT as a result. Thank you, JC, and I'd be glad to take any questions that you might have or any comments.
Yes, thank you, Randy, so much for that presentation. If you don't mind, I'm going to get into a couple things. I
Certainly.
just love talking to you. Every time I come away, I feel enlightened. Just because you're optimism, I think that's what drives it. So I got like 4 questions for you.
Okay, great.
And if you'll indulge me, so we have a kind of a new vision for higher ed in the state, and I think you kind of sparked that. You touched on a few of those things. Unprecedented increase in enrollment, fundraising, UT Promise, One UT culture. I was very fascinated by that. Oak Ridge Institute, UT Commission on Agriculture, Transportation, Team SOAR. The tenets, I think, that underlie everything you talk about are access and affordability. And I like the 0% increase for that. How do you continue to push access and affordability in higher ed statewide?
That's a great question, and again, it's part of our land grant missions to provide more access. I think the UT Promise was a big step forward in that. If you make under $50,000, and by the way, the median household income is $48,000, so if you make under $50,000, more than half the population of the state of Tennessee can now come to any one of our universities free of tuition and fee. That was a big step forward to keeping us affordable. Before this initiative, 51% of the students that graduated from UT Knoxville graduated with 0 debt. I get frustrated sometimes in the popular press when they talk about how people can't afford to go to college anymore. They can afford to come to the University of Tennessee, and now it's even more affordable. So we're continuing to make sure that we're affordable. We're also continuing to make sure that we reach out to students all across the state and the country to make sure they know about all the great experiences and offerings that they can get from the University of Tennessee.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. You know, growing up, I grew up just south of Knoxville, so I grew up in Cleveland. And it was never, I always dreamed of UT. We'd go to the football games and all that, but I had no, I didn't see I could ever afford it. So that was always something that you always spoke about on me about affordability that I always felt like was critical. You also mentioned micro-credentialing, and I got very excited about that as well. A lot of people don't understand what that means, but you're going to go into specialty areas, needs that I think the state or that we see in the United States to fill a gap. But would you go into that a little bit more?
Yes, sir.
How you envision that?
Yes, certainly. And the micro-credentialing is a popular term, but it's not always well defined. So we will probably come up with a different brand name for whatever we do when we do it. But the simple idea is being able to consume smaller quantities of knowledge in more convenient periods of time. So imagine a working adult that wants to come back and get a certification or a credential in a very specialized area, and they can't take a year off from work. So they could come for 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks in an evening program, or some combination of in-person and online programming to consume smaller bits of knowledge that will be useful for them in their career and their life. And so we imagine a lot more of those type of offerings. And I know, JC, you and I have talked about the drive to 55. The idea that by the year 2025, 55% of our population has some type of post-secondary certificate or degree. It's impossible to get to our goal on the backs of traditional age students. There's just not enough of them. If we just count on high school seniors matriculating to college and graduating, we will be only get halfway to our goal. So the only way we can get there is to reach out to working adults and provide them opportunities to get that additional education. So that's where micro-credentialing is critical for our state, it's critical for our university, it's critical for the people of Tennessee.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think, so one of my areas that I use the term seamless articulation, which is a fancy word for saying everything links together. But we need better alignment between K-12, traditional K-12 and higher ed. And this is where I think you articulate it so well. How do we get there? How do we link K-12 to higher ed in a better way?
Well, back in a former life when I was a special advisor on higher education, we coined the term K to J. It didn't really stick, but I'm going to keep trying and maybe one day it will. But it's exactly what you said. It's about kindergarten to a job, really not just a higher education, but onwards to a job. And so we do need to have that seamless articulation throughout. I think just with that one connector between 12th and college, one of the more important things, there's a lot of things, but one of the more important things we can do a better job of is dual enrollment, where juniors and seniors in high school are taking college credit classes that then give them a head start when they go to college. They're getting that bit of college experience, they're getting credit when they go to college, and studies have shown if you can have a few classes worth of credit under your belt as you enter college, you're far more likely to graduate from college. So it not only helps the matriculation to higher ed, but it also helps make sure that they actually graduate and then go on hopefully to get a great job as well. So one of the areas in which we want to do a lot more at the University of Tennessee is through broader, stronger dual enrollment offerings.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly right. And I'm going to have one follow-up in a minute, but you have always had a passion for rural Tennessee. People that know you the best know that you've been passionate about rural Tennessee. And how do we expand higher ed for rural Tennessee?
Well, a lot of our students in the rural communities are going to benefit disproportionately from the UT Promise. It's something that I think in a lot of our rural communities, unfortunately, are some of our poor communities, which means they'll have a lot higher percentage of their students that will fit within the under $50,000 income category for UT Promise. And so we're hopeful that this will help us to provide more opportunity for more of those students. We also need to make sure that they know that the University of Tennessee is an opportunity for them, and that's just us getting our message out. We also are trying to provide outreach to not just the students, but families, businesses, farmers, through our ag extension offices. We have an extension office in all 95 counties of the state, and they provide a tremendous amount of services to the citizens in those communities. One of the big programs that we offer, which is also maybe another link to UT or to any post-secondary, is through our 4-H programs. 4-H is a tremendous program, and the University of Tennessee manages it. In fact, we have 186,000 4-H members in the state of Tennessee, making us the largest 4-H club organization or state in the country, surpassing Texas, which is a much bigger state. So we're doing a tremendous job with 4-H across the state, and it's done through the University of Tennessee's extension offices.
That's excellent. That is a unknown factor, the connection with UT and 4-H. I wasn't even aware of that. Finally, and I can't let you go without saying this, just as a fan, I've got to ask how the Vols going to do this year. We're real pleased with Coach Pruitt. I've got to ask that because our people are going to want to know how the Vols going to do. Every time I go to anywhere, they ask.
Yeah, well, so far in 2020, we're undefeated, and we're going to continue to do so at least until the fall. But no, I'm optimistic. I think we've got a great recruiting class, and we're hopeful that we'll get the chance to play some football this year. That's not a decision that the president of the university makes or the chancellor of the University of Tennessee Knoxville makes. It's something that the SEC decides. But I know that the SEC is looking for ways to be able to provide football this fall in a safe way. But I'll be like every other UT Vol fan, be following their decision making very closely.
Yeah, so thank you. So as close, I just want to say thank you for agreeing, to present today. We love your message. We love what you do for the University of Tennessee. You bleed orange, and you really have brought and elevated the university. We thank you for that. We thank you for sharing. And we thank you for your years of service and commitment to higher ed for our kids. So thank you, Randy Boyd. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. It was my honor, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, thank you, sir. Have a great day. Bye-bye.